Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Legacy Liftoff podcast by Dronadair. Really appreciate you tuning back in. I have a special guest today, the president and founder of FlyRoute, Collin Caffrey. Thank you, Collin, for being with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking
Yeah,
forward to it. Excited.
yeah, I appreciate it. I've followed your company for a while now because I think as any young athlete in their day is like always trying to do something or get into the industry somehow, and I always really attracted me to it was the fact that like you're combining a sport that I loved and a technology now that I love, right, into it. But before we kind of get into that, on this podcast, if you've listened to any episodes, I always like to start off just kind of learning about you as a person and how you came into the industry and really learn how you got to where you're at today. And you don't need to give us the full on story, but I know you went to school for aviation. So obviously you were interested in that space and in some capacity. But tell me a little bit more about how, you got started in that and what kind of drew you to that industry in the beginning.
Sure. So yeah, I won't start at birth and go all the way through each year, but yeah, just kind of in summary, I always had a passion for aviation growing up. Had a grandfather who was a World War II pilot, and kind of that legacy throughout the family, and had other family in the military. Kind of thought initially that might be my trajectory, but yeah, my earliest memories of aviation were just going out to have lunch at the local airport and watching planes fly around and just thinking, wow, this is so amazing that this is the time we live in where, we can strap ourselves to a seat and fly through the air and just seeing all the operations, the ground operations, the fueling and the hangering and just maintenance and seeing it all come together, kind of just sparked an initial interest in me growing up. So I thought initially my career path would go down the pilot track, and joined an organization called the Civil Air Patrol growing up, and did some orientation flying, and kind of just quickly learned that sitting in a cockpit and having a really crazy schedule where you might be on the road for long periods of time, or if you go the pilot or the private route, you might be doing a lot of overnights and things like that are unpredictable. And I always just love business. So my path, I decided to go to school for aviation, but aviation management. So that was MSU Denver, and that was the aviation management track. And the kind of two primary paths that can take you are typically either working operations, so you're running an airport, or the other track there could be maybe the private route, which is kind of the lesser known route. But that's the route that I took after graduating in 2013, and kind of just worked my way up through the ranks of private aviation, and started fueling and towing aircraft, and worked into an operational role where I was managing schedules, and there was lots of different puzzle pieces. So there's a fleet of 50 aircraft that we managed with about 100 pilots, and had to make sure that the destinations and the client requests and the airports that you pick and the weather and the performance, I mean, all these things had to come together in a perfect harmony to make all these operations work. So learned a lot about business, because that was really the brain trust of the company, working in the operational role for a private aviation company. And really just kind of fell in love with the sales part of it, working with clients and kind of learning about who they are and their experiences and what their needs are, and then taking that a step further and surpassing what their expectations. I really valued that. So gravitated towards the sales route of that role, and worked in up into a few different jet card membership type of roles, where I was selling private jet memberships and trying to find the one percenters of the world, that could afford to do that type of thing. And it was really a insightful and meaningful time for me in my sales career, because I had to be at the top of your game as far as understanding the agreements and contracts, and how to just navigate those conversations. So really valued that time in my career. But have always, there's an itch in the back of my head where I was like, I always wanted to start a business, always wanted to kind of be on the leading front of technology, and always saw, drones as being a part of that in some capacity. So when 2017 came around, I said, gosh, this is such a great period of time to put my best foot forward in that industry and see where it goes. So I decided to scratch that itch with getting a 107, like most of us have done, and then see where it goes. And my journey was really just a lot about, consuming as much information as I could about how to start a business. I had some understanding working operations of how to, what kind of considerations to take into account for doing that. And, just said yes to everything. And that would be my recommendation to anyone, is just kind of get your foot out there in any capacity that you can. Did stuff I never thought I was qualified for, like shooting a wedding. Holy smokes. Talk about a nerve-wracking experience where you can't screw up. The first wedding I did was like, I won't get into the full story, but ended up having a little incident of clipping a tree with a drone, and the bride and groom were like, "Oh my gosh, what's going on?" And but you got to have those experiences. You got to be willing to
Yeah.
fail. Yeah, and they're laughable moments now, but at the time I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm never gonna get a job again."
I think
Um,
everybody at some point in their career of getting into, whether you're a creator or you're a drone pilot or you're a videographer or photographer, weddings are like, let's just get into a wedding, right? Like everybody knows someone getting married, and it's an easy way for you to practice and fly until you get to that day and you're like, what, this is real, this is like their best day of their life supposedly, and it's high pressure situations. I think that I have had a couple of those experiences back in the day as well, but yeah, it's not something everybody would love to continue to doing in different situations. But um, yeah, so were drones even? I know you working in aviation, you probably had some experience with them, right? Or that they were on the radar, that they were finally starting to get out there a little bit more. Part 107 had come out. But what was your first like exposure to drones, being in the aviation industry for that long?
yeah, so I was a part of Air Force ROTC throughout college. Ended up not going the commission route, and then went into the aviation track. Um, but my first exposure to it was going down to do a base visit of a Air Force base in New Mexico in Alamogordo, and they had all these Predator Reaper drones that were sitting out there on the flight line, and we got to walk around them, and they talked to us a little bit about the operations, and seeing it at a high level perspective of, wow, if the military's investing so much into this, and this is, the latest and greatest technology, I can only imagine what it's going to do for the private sector and how many different industries are going to benefit from this. So that was really my first taste of it, and where I started to kind of noodle on it a little bit more, of like, geez, this could really be something. And that was about 2015 at that point, so a few years prior to 107.
Yeah, I think that it's a so everybody that I've talked to can always relate it to like where they were or why they got first look at it of, wow, this is, for people that have been in it a long time, right? It was something that was very new. It was something that, like you mentioned, the military has been using for a very long time, right? But in different ways, in different capacities, and different drones than me and you are used to today as well, right? And even to this point, I mean, they're completely different. So I think it's funny because remember, same. Mine was more in the agricultural space, but yours is in that military space. And I think relating it or just seeing the opportunity to be like, wow, this is going to touch so many industries in so many ways. Um, so when you first then decided to dive in fully into your business, you said you were learning the business side, you had gotten your Part 107. Um, was FlyRoute like the first thing you thought of, or did you have like a list of business ideas in the industry, or did like what kind of gravitated you towards, or how did you start to formulate what type of business you wanted to start?
So the initial company that I started was actually called Angel Hawk. So I'm located here in the Denver area, so we're really close to the Rocky Mountains, and I have a background in search and rescue. At the time, I was volunteering for a local search and rescue team, and my initial thought was that I could really take the company and gear it towards a search and rescue avenue, and came to find pretty quickly. I mean, there's a lot of great applications for drones in that space, but it was really hard to build a business off of it. So a lot of search and rescue is very volunteer based. There's some consulting type of work that you can get working with some law enforcement, if you can land some of those gigs. But kind of like every industry that I experienced at that point in time, was that I was really just kind of waiting for the phone to ring. I was doing some cold reach outs here and there in different industries outside of search and rescue, just to try to diversify a little bit, see if I can spread the, quote unquote portfolio around, and really just kind of see what takes off. And yeah, so search and rescue was kind of on the fringe. And because I really wanted to make this, at the time I was still working my airport gigs full time, and doing this on the side. So definitely side hustle really for the first, for me, 4 years, where I could have, at 4 years in time after I got into the athletic niche, which I'll get into, that at that point, it was just like, I can't justify giving up my day job for this. And I kind of had a long-term view in 4 years down the road, about 2020, 2021, where, I could have quit my job and gone full time, but I brought on partners so that we could kind of scale operations and divvy up tasks a little bit more, which I can talk more about that experience. But yeah, the way athletics really kind of came into the fold in all of this is that I had a family friend who, he's a former NFL athlete. His name's Harold Hasselback, and he is this monstrous. I mean, he's a huge guy, 260 pounds. 6'3", 6'4". 7 years in the NFL, and he was in the John Elway era. For those of you who know him, and won 2 Super Bowls. But he coached at a local private high school near me, and the most unsuspecting drone nerd that you could ever imagine. He just love flying drones for hobbies. So he was flying drones at their local practices at the high school level for football. And he said, "Hey, why don't you come out and just do some filming for us at practices?" And that's really where it started, was just in that avenue, so I could kind of take the burden off the teams. And coincidentally, the year that we had started, I had started filming just for the practices, I looked into the sports association rules at the high school level, and that year, the same year I started the company in 2017, they allowed for drone usage in game. So I said, "Gosh, we'll be the first ones to do this, but let's go for it." I don't know what all this is going to look like, and it was pretty nerve wracking to be flying a drone, or looking into the prospect of flying a drone while you have a live audience there watching you, and the crowd noise, and stadium lights, and all the officials. And I remember the first feeling, or the first time going out there and doing that during a game. They have for their home opener game, they have a big flyover where they've got 4 aircraft, doing a formation flight over the game, and
Wow.
I've got the drone prepped and ready to go, and my heart's racing, and I'm like, okay, like this is this is the big show now. Like I
For
can't
real,
afford
you're
to,
ready.
I can't afford to mess this up. Um, so I try to, now that I'm training other pilots to do the same thing. I try to remember what it's like on that first time going out to the field and what that feels like, and try to recreate that. Because doing the 7 years now, a lot of those jitters have gone away. But yeah, you got to be on your game, and we can talk more about kind of what the preparation for that looks like. But that's a big key. Have all those pieces in place before you get out there to the field. So fast forward to today, we're currently serving 40 high school football programs in the Denver area. And then last year we had just grown out of state. So we added on a program in Nashville, and then we added on another high school program in Pittsburgh. So a lot of growth, a lot of lessons learned, and really grateful for the journey thus far.
Yeah, congrats. I think there's always that reoccurring theme though of seeing an opportunity that presents itself and taking advantage of it at the right time. Like timing, I've spoke about this a lot in the past, but like timing is everything. But if you ignore what is in front of you, the timing means nothing if you don't take action, right? It's like you actually seeing it, you being in touch with Harold Hasselback and him inviting you out, and the timing of it all being legal for the first time is a very, fortuitous adventure if you take advantage of it, which you have, and congratulations on doing that. I think that's the biggest step for anyone new to a business, whether it's in the drone industry or not, finding what makes sense for you locally, but as well as then an opportunity for you more regionally and nationally, potentially as well, if you so choose to take it that far, right? So, kudos to you in that. And I think what's cool too is that ultimately you're being able to provide something for athletics that may not have been around. I know if it was around when I was in high school, I would have absolutely been over there talking to that drone pilot, asking him like, "What's going on? Like, how can we use this footage in a new way?" Or just it's cool, right? And people don't see it, and I'm sure that first night that you flew at that stadium, people were like, "Hey, there's a drone over there," right? Like very, very foreign to them as well. But you mentioned the expansion into other states and to new school districts and things like that. We had talked about this a little bit beforehand, but I know even I'm in Wisconsin, so I've filmed at state cross country. I've filmed at a couple other state led athletic events. There's different hoops that you have to jump through, right? They implemented different classes of now with remote ID and everything, and they kind of have followed suit on that just in the state of Wisconsin. But how do you kind of now, as you look to grow and even expand more, are the regulations pretty standard across most states, or they're pretty individual as far as from allowing drones during state-led athletics?
Yeah, so it's really, all across the board, from coast to coast, and we've learned a lot in the recent years. But yeah, just kind of prefacing that topic, and yeah, it's a good question, because it's definitely something that is at the forefront of what we do for sure. But just prefacing that, obviously the FAA regulations are at the very top of the list for what we have to abide by, as far as not overflying non-participants, and making sure we're aware of airspace, and doing release authorizations and things of that nature. So that's definitely top of the list. And then kind of working down the the regulation side of things. So there's sports associations that manage kind of what you can and can't do at the high school level, and then at the collegiate level, a lot of it's NCAA led, and some of the high schools even take on NCAA rulings and implement it. Like Texas is an example of that; they follow all the NCAA rules, but checking first and foremost with the sports association and what they allow. There's the National Federation of High School, and they they have kind of an overarching recommendation of what to do, what you can't do. And what they say, and some states interpret this differently than others, but what they say is that there's kind of a 2 foot barrier around the playing surface in which you can't have any sort of outside electronics or interference or camera equipment or anything like that. It doesn't specifically state that that is from the ground up to infinity, but some people interpret it that way. Colorado, where we're located, or our home base is located, fortunately, as their sports association has been super, forward leaning on technology and really have the athletes' interest in the bet in their mind and the coaches, and they want to see student athletes benefit from technology. So we've been lucky, but checking with the association first and foremost, seeing what they have to say. Some states allow you to kind of overfly the empty portion of the playing surface, and then some states don't allow you to. So for the states that don't allow you to, like for example, our Pittsburgh location, we have to fly behind the end zone the entire time. So that's a consideration there. We're working to advocate for changes in some of these policies, and then going beyond the sports association, you have to go down to the school districts and what do the districts have to say, and what does the specific school have to say? And some of them have drone policies, some of them don't. When I started doing this in 2017 for our state, we probably had about 40% of locations would allow us to fly at away games when we were traveling on the road. And now that I've had more conversations with these schools, they've gotten to know who we are as a professional company and our safety standards, and they've seen us out there. We're now at the point where we have about 95% of schools allow for us to be able to fly there. And it really creates kind of a little bit of a moat or, barrier of entry. Not a lot of other operators and whatnot can get that authorization because they haven't been around very long, and it took a lot of time for us to have these conversations with risk management departments. And that would be one thing I would advocate for anyone to get really skilled at, is how to navigate those conversations, because there's such a huge component of education right now. This technology can be seemingly a little bit scary when you don't know a lot about, it's the fear of the unknown, I suppose, to some degree. So just getting a lot of entrenched, mindsets of and just kind of walking them through the path of, okay, here's why this technology is safe. Here's the safety considerations that's built into the aircraft, and then here's our checklist and processes to how we ensure safety. And a lot of that kind of comes back from, I think, my aviation experience and seeing the processes that our pilots took to ensure the safety of their passengers, and then kind of tying that into what we're doing with athletics. But yeah, I'd say that's a huge component of advocating for safety, and make sure you have a very system oriented way of navigating your operations.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing because I think one, you're taking the time to really understand the environment where you're flying, the safety aspects is number one, right? And that's most important, and that's kind of how you've been able to build a brand and a company around being able to do it right? I mean, ultimately is a huge part of it, but you also have some pretty cool tech, right? And also a process that you're not just flying this for just internal use or whatnot, right? Could you get a little bit too deeper on, because I think, we've had a lot of conversations around safety in certain areas, and I want to stress that obviously in any new venture or any new arena that you're in, no pun intended for this conversation, that you're ultimately looking at safety number one, right? But to dive a little bit deeper on your tech and your company and whatnot, you're live streaming some of this too, right? For coaches and people that are either on the sidelines with, you always see these NFL players throwing their surfaces, and they're getting the tech, they're getting the video from obviously other places. But are you're doing that, some of that stuff as well, where you're giving real time feedback to coaches and people that are a part of these programs?
Yeah, so the ways that we deliver the film, and that's something that, yeah, I've heard you talk about on your podcast too. It's not just, being able to have your Part 107 and go out and fly, but what are the deliverables? How are you gonna make this into something that's of value to the customer? And the real value for the coaches is, of course, the perspective is, it's a lot like that NFL cable cam over the top where you can see everything. And
Hmm.
the testimonies we get from the coaches are like, I don't use any other perspective that we've ever used before. They used to do a press box angle from the side view, and all you can see is the side of the athletes, and then they'd have like a end zone tower that would go about 20 or 30 feet up, and all you're really looking at for the most part, especially if they're on the opposite end of the field, is you're just looking at players' backs. So to be able to get 90 to 100 feet up, and you just see everything is just amazing. So that's, first and foremost, is the perspective is unbeatable. Um, but going beyond that, for the deliverables, the way we deliver the footage to the teams is we'll upload raw footage to an online platform where coaches can view it after the game, and we get that uploaded within 2 hours after the event, and then athletes they have access to it, and you can tag plays, and you can do a whiteboard format, and it's just an amazing platform to be able to for them to use. So online, and then like you'd mentioned as well, as the live stream type of deliverable, which is our sideline replay systems. So we integrate the drone into a sideline replay where coaches on the sidelines, they'll have either an iPad or a TV, and they'll be bringing the offensive or defensive line off the field, and they'll be running them through what they just did on the field.
Love
It's pretty immediate that they can go back and scrub through all the footage. And then the coaches that are up in the press box that are doing the play calling, they're able to see all the footage, and they can make in-game adjustments as the game is progressing, and um, it's just unbelievable. I didn't touch on this, but my background in athletics was playing baseball, and I don't think I ever looked at a lick of film at all in my athletic career
it.
in high school. I didn't play in college, but um, and then you see how football uses it, and they live and die by the film. It has to be there.
Absolutely.
And what a great coaching tool. I mean, it's just such a game changer. And then the third deliverable that we have for our film is to integrate into professional production. So we've done for like our state championship game, we've been on live TV where we'll have they tend to like the big kickoff shot where you've got the kicking team all lined up, and the ball's flying through the air, and you get all 22 players on the field, and they like that view. And then also during commercial breaks, we can do kind of like an orbit shot around the stadium, and that's a little newer to us. But that's really exciting to see that that's kind of just been a natural evolution of where this has all gone. Is let's get this into the live production side of things, which is exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, why not? I mean, I think most people, when they think of drones, that's what they think of, right? Is like taking pictures and videos. But it's kind of funny to see that that was the last thing that really you've adopted. Not last thing, but the most recent thing that you've adopted into it, because you've taken such a new approach to it. And I agree with you. We had a Huddle account when I was in high school, but it wasn't more than just like a highlight reel at the end of the year. Uh, for people to look at and view, and that was about it. We were not using it for in-game adjustments and being able to see what we did wrong on a play or what we could have done better. I think it's such an advantage for anybody that wants to take their that insight and take their program to a new level. And it's super cool too. You always, and you see these people just the other day at these NFL stadiums, still flying drones over the top of these NFL stadiums to get this view, because it is like a crazy view, but it's just we don't need to get in that aspect because I feel like we could have a whole nother conversation on people being dumb near NFL and professional sports stadiums, as I'm sure you have some thoughts on, which is no great. I mean, immediately after too, I always go online and it's like Facebook groups just blow up, be like, "Who's doing it? What are you doing?" But um,
Oh, it's ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things I think we all deal with in whatever industry you're in, where it's like you don't want the few bad apples to ruin it for the rest of us, right? And
yeah,
then, unfortunately, when you look at kind of the history of the FA and how they react to things, it's not necessarily proactive in the sense of, which is to a degree a good thing. They kind of
mhm,
let the industry flush itself out and see kind of where the problems lie, and give us a little bit of leash on operating at first. But the more incidents, accidents, and God forbid this ever leads to a critical, life
yeah.
threatening accident. But yeah, it would certainly hate to see a few bad apples ruin industries, because there's so much good that the technology is doing right now for a lot of different sectors. But
Yeah,
um,
I mean,
yeah.
manage the rule, not the exception, right? And that's what I think they've always adopted is trying to figure out how they can let those people flush themselves out and really, not knowing certain problems would even arise until they actually do come up. Um, which is something that hopefully continues to become better. I know there's certain companies out there that are doing also some mitigation on that and allowing to detect drones that aren't authorized during these events and things like that. But me from the business side and the entrepreneurial mindset, I'm just thinking about different ways to like integrate into your business in certain areas and different things that you could go potentially. I'm sure you've thought of some of these ideas too, but like as the NFL consistently and constantly gets more and more flack for their referees and their replays and things like that. Is that something that you would or have ever considered as well, like providing this real-time footage for these events for potentially like instant replay if that would become an actual thing in high school and sports and whatnot potentially? Is that on the road or am I overstepping and we shouldn't talk too much about it?
No, there's a lot of great deliverables in this space that really haven't been tapped into. And I think a lot of it. So, like at the collegiate level, they'll do replays for
Yep.
referees and reviewing the plays. At the high school level, that's not there yet at this point, just because of, I think there's such a the technology, it kind of varies depending on what field you're at, um, and it's more based off of what the school can afford and what they can kind of support than rather the sports association. That's kind of
Mhm.
more NCAA led. So, and just based off of how at the collegiate level, the NCAA, they aren't allowing for in-game drone usage. The application right now, it kind of stands more where it's better suited for like practice usage, and
Mhm.
that's another offering that we have is that we'll come out to film all the practices, so coaches can really get different drills where they're doing maybe just their wide receiver drills. We can do a high and wide shot with the drone where they're getting everything, or if they're doing some lineman drills, we can keep our same altitude, but we can zoom in, and you don't even hardly hear that the drone's there. It's out of sight, out of mind, but they're still getting that great perspective for practices. For me, I'm more the, and this is where my partner helps kind of rein me in a little bit. I'm like the visionary type where I'm like, ooh, shiny thing over here, ooh, shiny thing over here.
Right.
Let's try this, let's try that. And I think the thing I've learned the more I've been doing this is that really focusing in on what we're good at, where we're excelling, and just kind of diving in more into that. There's great opportunities on the production side of things, the live production at the professional level. It would be very easy to get maybe sidetracked and try to just hone in on those areas of the market. Whereas right now, we're very coach led. We're very team led. It's the coaches that really are finding the value for this and are flipping the bill to make this happen. So
Yeah.
try to stay cognizant of that and just mindful of like, okay, where are we good? Where are we good at things? Where are we not? And really just try to, and then the things that are opportunities, they expose themselves. They show themselves up to the surface. We don't have to necessarily go and create things that we think people are going to like, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, this offering is not, nobody wants it.
Right.
So it's easy to
Yeah.
assume a lot of things until it's got to be more of a customer led um, orientation rather than a company led
Yeah.
effort.
Well, I mean, speaking of visionary and just like your long-term thinking, and you touched on your growth a little bit earlier of how many areas you're in and the expansion to different states. I'd love to touch a little bit more on your service partnership program as well, that I saw that you released. I believe it was at the end of last month, right? In December, at the end of 2023 there. Uh, Tell me a little bit more about that, because I think the way you've operated up to that point, right, was more so finding, you would find the schools, or you'd find the programs that were interested in, and then supplying a pilot or training a pilot and being a part of it, very hands on, which I know you still would be at this point, or during that. But yeah, tell me a little bit more about this new service partnership program that you guys have released.
Yeah, absolutely. So the two things I really value in this effort is the fact that we get to build something and kind of see the fruits of our labor kind of pay off through all the hard work, and then also creating opportunities for other people to kind of be their best version of themselves and reach goals that they've had and build their own business. So up to this point, everything's been kind of internally managed. I didn't mention this earlier, but we assign one drone pilot to one team. So because we have 40 teams, that means we have 40 pilots and 40 drones in our fleet in the Denver area, and it's labor intensive. I mean, there's a lot of vetting, interviewing. We go out and we do a flight practical with the pilots to make sure they can safely and competently fly the drone. So that's part of the interview process. And then once you pass that, then we will provide training, which kind of just shows what does right look like. How do you safely fly at a sporting event? What does the film need to look like? How do you integrate with sideline replay systems? How do you upload film? So we've really made significant improvements in the training process and area. But this last year, when we were managing some out of state contracts, start to learn that it's not very scalable to be able to manage things remotely. If some equipment's having issues, or if we need a pilot training event that's in person, we have to go and fly out there. So yeah, it's not scalable, but there's other parts of the country that really could benefit from this technology and this offering. So that was what led us to offering this service partner program, which in a nutshell, it's a lot like maybe kind of how a franchise might look. We call it maybe like an anti-franchise. So what we're offering is a minority partnership, a minority equity stake in a FlyRoute location. So we'll open up FlyRoute locations in other parts of the country, and with that investment, we've really designed this to be more of a business in a box type of deal, where all the things that we learned the hard way, we are saving others from having to make those mistakes, and we've systematized our training practices, our hiring practices. All the equipment that we use is all predetermined, and we help in that process. The marketing and branding support, the technology that we use as far as the CRM tools and accounting, business development resources. So we've really kind of built this in a way to where we can help someone who's very leadership driven, management, entrepreneurial, wants to start their own location, and either has a 107 or doesn't, but really, just kind of has that winning attitude of like, I really want to see a successful drone business of my own just start to thrive. And yeah, I'm excited for what that means. Um, excited for being able to kind of focus more on our service partners and help them along, and then just kind of see that growth trajectory, and then whatever it is that each partner wants to do, whether it's they've got a side business of their own, and maybe they want an exit strategy from this and then sell it off 2 or 3 years, 5 years down the road and go into something else. We want to be able to help in that effort as well, as far as an exit strategy component. So, yeah, lots of exciting things, and we're in the middle of having those conversations right now. So just loving talking to all the entrepreneurs, and I think we're in a lucky space with the drone industry because there's a lot of people who are looking to start their own business and find their own version of success.
Yeah, I think it's super cool, because I think there's so many different ways. I get asked all the time of like, "Hey, I'm just starting out. I got my Part 107, or I'm working on it. Where do I go? How do I get into the industry? How do I get clients? How do I set up a business? How do I manage clients, get more clients, whatever it is, right?" And ultimately, I'll always ask them, "Well, what do you love to do, and what are you good at?" First of all, like if you're not a videographer or photographer, like you're not going to be one to do cinematic, footage or work with marketing agencies for that stuff. If you have no idea how to map, you can learn it, right? And you can get into it. But in your case, if you have a love for, that entrepreneurial mindset, you want to get in the industry, you probably have a love for athletics in some way. And being around that and doing something new, I think it's a super, super awesome way for you to kind of get into that and tap into that, with you being able to provide a starting point and a good amount of resources to for them to be successful from the jump. So kudos to you. I love the logo too, by the way. I mean, it stands out, right? You know what it is, I think, pretty easily. Your tagline, it makes sense. So I think it's a cool brand as well. So yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, absolutely. How long did it take you to come up with that? I'm always curious on that as well.
Well, yeah, if you can fray away and stay away from rebranding, I suggest that to anybody because it's like building another company from the ground up. I mean, it is so much work. But yeah, once we got to the point where we were so niched in the athletic space and especially heavy on the football side, I was like, what's going to resonate with these coaches and teams more so than my previous company name, Angel Hawk, which was more geared towards search and rescue. So yeah, just got to look. I was looking up, different play formations and different positions, and just terminology of the industry. And I was up late one night at probably 10, 11 o'clock, just like scrolling, looking through stuff, and I was looking at wide receiver routes, and there's a route that wide receivers can take, part of their route tree, that's straight out towards the end zone, and it's called a fly route. And so having fly in the name, and then it's football terminology, it's kind of it's also referred to as a go route. But
Yeah,
I was like, man, that's great. And then the domain name was available for a couple thousand,
that's
and was like, all right,
that's
we
the
got to
biggest
jump on
thing.
this. Yeah, they got to
That's
be
the
able to
biggest
find you,
thing,
right?
right? Yeah, if you don't have a domain name, right? It's like what do you get? Where do we go? How do we find you?
Yeah,
That's awesome, man. Love to hear it. Well, I appreciate you being on today and kind of being here to tell your story a little bit more. I know I learned a lot as well. Hopefully, some of our listeners did as well. One thing I love to do at the end is kind of get your thoughts on how you continuously are looking to leave a legacy in the industry by doing what you're doing, and then letting people know what's the best way for them to connect with you, whether that's email, LinkedIn, social, whatever it is. How can people find you?
yeah, for sure. So, from a legacy standpoint, I just think it's so exciting, no matter what industry, you're in. For me, being able to provide value, something that our customers really see, when I got into this, I didn't really think about the fact that, gosh, this film is helping, athletes get to play at higher levels. It's getting them to play at collegiate levels. It's getting them to play at the professional level, and providing that recruiting tape. And it's really exciting kind of when you shift your mindset. I think as long as you have the right, kind of to your point, that you have to do what you love. I definitely agree with that. But also, if you can find, I mean, we could be in no bashing on this industry, but if you're cleaning porta potties, I mean, if you're seeing the benefit and the value of it, and you're seeing the end result, I think if you kind of work backwards from what you're providing, it can create so much meaning, and no matter what industry you're in. So yeah, those are the kind of people that we're looking to work with. And I think that's definitely the legacy, is creating that customer value, creating a growth vehicle, and then just together kind of seeing the fruits of our labor, and that hard work really paying off is just such an exciting process to be a part of. So I love every step of that, for sure. And yeah, you can find us at FlyRoute.com is our website. If anyone's interested in learning more about our service partner program, you can go to the contact page. So FlyRoute.com/contact. And then there's just a little link there. It says, if you're an entrepreneur and you're interested in service partner program, click here. It'll give you some more information about kind of who we're looking for, what we offer, and how to apply for that. There's an application link at the bottom of that page. And yeah, it's definitely, a two-way dialogue for this. Want it to be not only the right fit for us, but the right fit for the person. Would hate for somebody to get into it that's like, this is not what I'm passionate about. So we are being interviewed as much as we are interviewing others. Want it to be very much a equally yoked partnership, where we're all going the same direction, and feeling good about where we're going together. So yeah, yep.
Awesome.
And then all the socials, FlyRoute Drones, are on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can find us at FlyRoute Drones that way.
Fantastic, man. I love the mindset, the legacy, everything that you're doing. Again, appreciate you being on today. We'll put all those links in the show notes for anybody that's listening. Appreciate it. And if you liked the episode, again, we're new to this, so if you can like, comment, share us, give us a comment how you're liking it, so we can have other cool people in the industry doing cool stuff on. It's greatly appreciated. So thanks again, Collin, for being here today, and take care.
Yeah, thanks, Cody. Thanks for the conversation.
Absolutely.